Seems like I'm honestly making one of these deck profiles like every single day now, but I'm happy back on my channel, so you know, gotta keep up the good work, right? Gotta get them YouTube coins or whatever. Hello you guys, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to the KP Kingdom channel. It is I, your host, the KP King himself, and today I figured that I would show you guys just an older deck that I have that I haven't been playing with much until like recently, but with the election showing up, I figured this would be a better time to show my Dimension Police deck. So my Dimension Police deck is honestly, just a little story about this. This is the very first deck I got when I started playing Standard. I didn't think I was going to be into Vanguard because I was getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh! But then I bought like a whole case set with some friends for the original set, which was not the original set, but it was Grand Blue, Dimension Police, and Aqua Force. And then I ended up building Dimension Police, and I realized I actually liked it. And that was because at the time I didn't want to spend the money for Kagero, so I was going to just pick Dimension Police. Dimension Police seemed kind of cool. I like the whole superior ride mechanic. They have a great Daisha. And so forth. It's been my main clan until they introduced Blade Master. Blade Master is my avatar, so I will definitely be having a video coming out on that, and that'll probably be my longest one because I just love to talk about Blade Master because he's my avatar. So without further ado, I'm gonna hop right into this deck profile. Alright you guys, so to start off with our main grade 3, we play 4 copies of Super Dimensional Robo Dailiner. Super Dimensional Robo Dailiner is still without a doubt the best grade 3 that Dimension Police has. He's your best first ride target. He's your second best ride target for our newest grade 3, which is Black. And it all goes because of his ability lets you search out grade 3s to get that additional power and critical, and then his other ability lets you defend with your grade 3s by adding them 10,000 shield. So a lot of the Dimension Police grade 3s that we play in the deck now simply focus on power and superior riding, and not so much support as it did in the previous or older Dimension Police decks, as now we just want to go force 2 and one-shot our opponent, because that's pretty much the goal of Dimension Police. And with some of the newer support and promo cards this deck has gotten, it's a lot more doable. Dailiner is still the best simply because having him as your first ride means that you can set up a board, get extra cards to your hand, and also have defense. So pretty much he just sets up for your next turn, and then getting the 20,000 power and +1 critical around force 2 means that you're already going in for 3 damage. And if you're going first and your opponent's at 2 damage, they're pretty much already in the zone to die, so they're going to be using a lot of your cards from their hand to block that. Overall, this card is still really powerful and should not be underestimated in this meta, especially with all the support that it has now. I play 4 copies of Ultimate Dimensional Robo Great Daisha. This is still the win con of Dimension Police in general. Having the ability to superior ride and then extra force marker and 10k to the front row just fixes everything with this deck. It fixes the offense, it gives you an extra force marker, extra drive checks, and you're getting power on that Vanguard circle with extra twin drives. So there's nothing bad about this card, and since the deck is mainly focused on Dailiner, this is the win con that we want to go for, and the main grade 3 that we're always going to search out with his ability so that we can set up and kill for our next turn, or it's the grade 3 that we're going to go and set up to kill with on another new card that we play in the deck to help us do that. So I don't think there's much to say about Great Daisha other than the fact that it really is the great. I played 3 copies of Black Clad Top Tier Deity Brad Black. Brad Black, is it? Yeah, I'm gonna call it, yeah, I'm Brad Black, yeah, whatever, I don't care. So we played 3 copies of Brad Black simply because this is honestly like a staple in Dimension Police. I don't think it matters what Dimension Police deck you're playing. If you're not playing this card, then I don't know what you're doing. Like, this card, it fixes everything. It gives you a free superior ride, gives you 10k to the front row, and the fact that it's a grade 3 that has a force marker is just a plus for Dimension Police anyway. So originally I was playing 4. As the original version of this deck, I got the inspiration for from Different Fight, but after doing some playtesting and some watching a Japanese deck list and watching some Japanese deck list happen in the meta, I had decided to make some changes to the deck. I felt like there were some grade 1s and 2s in the deck that I wanted to add, mainly just because I felt like they added support to the deck that I was starting to notice was the problem. I still play hyper aggressive, but the fact that, you know, I'm mainly using Brad Black as my second grade 3 ride, like if I go second, this is the card I want to go into, versus if I was playing one of my supporting grade 3s like Sinbad or, no, not Sinbad, Silbard or Dizoris, then I just wanted this instead. So this is essentially the second turn grade 3 ride that we're going to do, so that this way we can, get faster killing our opponent. And now for our grade 2s. I play 4 copies of Platinum Ace. Platinum Ace is your ideal grade 2 ride target. It gets 5k on the Vanguard, and then you can put it behind the boosters. You're obviously doing 23k to set it for your Die Brave turns. And then the fact that he gets 10k and a crit on the rear guard just helps up faster for your kill turn. Essentially, the way this deck works is you're going to be stacking Force 2 markers everywhere on your board along with additional power, and then adding the trigger effects to your units, and you're going to be damaging the hell out of your opponent, or you're going to be forcing your opponent to guard all of your attacks because everything's just swinging with 2 crits or 3 crits or more, simply because most of the effects of these cards either get power or critical or just both, and your opponent just can't handle doing all that, because if they're at 3 damage, then essentially they have to guard everything, because almost everything in this deck gets critical or gets high power, and that's just what they can't afford to take. So I play 4 Platinum Ace because it's the best grade 2 ride that DP has right now, other than Die Dumper, and it offers the most offensive support. For my next grade 2, I play 4 copies of Dimensional Robo Die Dragon. So Dimensional Robo Die Dragon, I still like this card. It's a powerful rear guard that goes up to 20k. It offers 5k to your Vanguard, and sometimes that 5k is very helpful in just helping you round up to higher numbers, or just getting to that number if you ever are bricking it, which is very rare, to get to that number that you need for your Vanguard to activate your Great Dayusha skills or activate the power cap skills so that you can use the skill of other units. And then being 20k on the rear guard is pretty good, and then you throw a Force 2 on and trigger, so you're already putting yourself at 30, and having boosters puts it at 38, so it's always at good numbers. It just helps support the offense and just keeps your deck from bricking. And then finally, I play 2 copies of Quick Hero Active Mask. So I actually like this card a lot. Active Mask is the card that lets you counterblast 1 and restand this unit when your Vanguard attacks and its power is 30,000 or more. So before, you couldn't play this card because the deck did have a counterblast issue, and you spent it on a lot of other skills. And now I just like this card because you stack this on the Force 2 markers, and then you can get 2 30k Force 2 attacks that your opponent has to block, because this card alone is 4 damage when it's on a Force 2, and it'll restand, and your opponent obviously doesn't want to deal with that. So having this card to add multiple attacks to the deck is pretty good. This Dimension Police deck now gets at least 4 to 5 attacks in a turn, because you're going to attack with this, get the superior ride off, and that'll be restanding, and then attack with your rear guard, your Vanguard, and then this, because this has to attack first before the Vanguard does, so you can get the restand. So having this card to add multiple attacks to the deck onto the Force 2 is really good, because it's just a lot of pressure that your opponent cannot handle. Finally, going on to my grade 1s, I played 2 copies of Sludge Monster Drowhead. So this was a tech in the deck that I decided to make space for by dropping another card that I play and one of my Brad Blacks. So if you don't know what Sludge Monster Drowhead does, it's a grade 1 Dimension Police promo, and it has the ability where when it's placed on the Guardian Circle, your opponent cannot boost until the end of the turn, except for the attack that it's currently boosting to block. So essentially what this does is this shuts down actually a lot of decks. It shuts down Revan, because Revan can't use boost from their rear guards to get to the rest. It shuts down Dragonic Overlord of the Cross, because they can't use their Heat Shot Dragons to keep restanding. And then it shuts down Vanquisher, because those other rear guard columns with Vanquishers that need the boost to get to the power, it blocks. And so essentially this card just shuts down a lot of decks, because a lot of Excel and Protect decks that need those boosting attacks to get that additional power, because they're powering up their rearguard columns, is actually a pretty big deal, and I didn't realize this. So to help with our defense, I decided to throw Drowhead in there instead of playing Space Dandy, because I don't like Space Dandy, never did. It's a 9k 15 shield. I mean, yeah, it's a cool card, but I just don't want to play 9ks in this type of deck. And I didn't want to dedicate a lot of the slots in my deck to defense, simply because this deck already builds up a huge hand, and card advantage isn't exactly the issue that it was anymore because of what our cards do. So Drowhead is just our main defensive card. It shuts down a lot of things, and it just keeps you safe. I figured playing this card so that I don't have to spend as many cards in my hand to block attacks was helpful in assisting me with card advantage in a unique way. For my next grade 1, I played 3 copies of Dimensional Robo Die Brave. So Die Brave is still a really amazing grade 1. It's pressure, draw, and then it gives 5k to your Vanguard. And I'm gonna pretty much say the same thing for Die Dragon. Would say this, the 5k that you get, sometimes it's useful, helps you round out to those high power numbers, but I mainly play this card because it's a pressure on hit draw, and this deck doesn't build soul, and you know, if I ever like, you know, you overuse my soul for my Platinum Aces or my Die Dragons or my Die Brave, I have this card that essentially replaces itself for another card. And you know, that's really helpful if we want to boost our hand, since we don't really play too many draw cards in here as we do searching cards. So this card overall just assists with getting soul and pressure and helping with our resources. And then finally I play 3 copies of Twin Order. So this is probably the MVP of Dimension Police right now. It's a Festival Collection promo, and if you guys don't know what this card does, Twin Order has the ability where when it boosts a unit, your Vanguard gets 10,000 power for every force marker on the board. And I really think that's important to emphasize this. It's force marker that you have on the board, not force marker that you have on the Vanguard circle. So for example, if I use this card to like boost a rear guard, and you know, it's one of my restanding rear guard, like my active mask or my other rear guard, because I superior ridden a new unit, that unit will get the power from all the force markers I have in play. So essentially this makes our Vanguard attacks from our superior ridden units more threatening, because we're gonna have our Force 2 on our Vanguard as well, especially the ones that we get from the superior riding. So we want our attacks to be as lethal and threatening as possible. And since you're getting like 2 Vanguard attacks a turn, one from like the first one and superior riding, then having this card to reset the power in your Vanguard is just really helpful as well, helping you get over those big numbers like 40k, 50k, because that's very easy to do in this deck. So Twin Order just helps your offense. I actually think that out of all the cards in Dimension Police, this is a staple for every Dimension Police deck, whether you're playing Metalborg, Grand Gallop, or Dailiner. I feel like you have to play this card. It's unfortunate that it's a promo. I don't know what it costs now, but I remember when I bought it, it's $25, but it's totally worth it if you're thinking about playing Dimension Police competitively. And for my last grade 1, to wrap it all off, I play 4 copies of Cosmic Hero Grand Gallop. So it was between this card and Die Scooper. Yeah, that's what it's called. I actually don't like Die Scooper that much. I do, but at least not for this Dimension Police deck, simply because I've personally never had an issue with getting my grade 3s. And even though I'm playing less grade 3s now to make space for that grade 1 tech that I was showing you, I just don't have an issue with that. Essentially what this card does is it fixes my ride for whatever turn I'm going for, since it is our grade 3 searcher. And if I'm going first, I obviously want to get the Dailiner. If I'm going second, I want to get the Brad Black because I want the multi-attack. But I mainly just play this card because it fixes my hand to do so and helps me cycle out through my deck more. Die Scooper is okay, but the power to me was also more important, and this gets consistently 5k, whereas Die Scooper is just an on place. So I just picked this card over Die Scooper. And now for my triggers. So my trigger lineup has definitely been a journey, but I finally settled on 6 critical triggers, which was 4 copies of Dimensional Robo Die Racer and 2 copies of Dimensional Robo Die Battles. And then I play 6 draw triggers, which is 2 copies of Army Penguin and 4 copies of Diamond Ace. And so offensively, like, this is just like the best combo of triggers I could play. Originally I was playing 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal, but I was having trouble seeing my pieces, and I wasn't too worried about the critical because our attacks were so pressuring and so like offensive already that having additional critical didn't really matter for me. So I took out crits to play the additional draw. But then the problem was I was seeing so many draws in my hand, and because draws were only 5k, I was spending more cards to guard with than I wanted to, although it did help me get my pieces and took away from my offense. And then I dropped it to 2 draw, and then I was playing 10 critical, but then I ran into the same problem that I was before with the deck, which was I wasn't seeing any of my pieces because I had no drawing for my triggers. So finally, after just playtesting so much, this is what I settled on. 6 crit, 6 draw. I think this is totally fine. You're more than welcome to play 8 crit, 4 draw. That's good too, but I just felt like I wanted to see more of my pieces than I did care about my offense. So that's just what I just decided on for me personally. And then finally, I play 4 heal triggers, which is Dimensional Robo Go Rescue. We're essentially playing a Dimensional Robo deck, so I felt like Go Rescue was the most fitting. But I'm not going to balls to the walls and playing a, all offensive deck with the triggers, so 4 heal triggers is still good to assist with our defense. And then my starter is Dimensional Robo Goyusha, because we're essentially playing Dimensional Robos. Alright you guys, so then I want to talk about the markers a little bit. So this deck just honestly, primarily all the time goes Force 2. You never go Force 1. There's never a situation where I wanted to go Force 1, simply because the way that a lot of the decks are now. If I did go Force 1, it'd have to depend on the matchup. And the only decks that I've ever gone Force 1 against was, I think maybe it was like, my opponent was at 4 damage and they were playing Gold Paladin, and I decided to go Force 1 because their hand was already low and I had Platinum Ace, I had, you know, Dailiner. So it was just like, I had 2 Platinum Aces, a Dailiner, I had criticals already set up and they were at 4 damage. So I was like, the Force 1 at extra power along with the superior ride that I'm about to get was just helpful in that situation. But it's only when my opponent's at like a very, very high damage count already. Like I'm talking like 4 damage, like when on like turn like 4 or 5, I'm on grade 3 is when I decided to go Force 1 versus going Force 2, which is what I normally go for because my opponent knows how this deck works, or they have an idea of how Dimensional Police wants to play, so they decide to block a lot of attacks early. So Force 2 to apply that pressure is just the main thing that you're going to go for, especially considering the fact that Dailiner alone is going to be 2 critical, so he'll be 3, and then you have Platinum Aces who will be 3, and then you have Active Masks who can restand, so he's going to be 2 criticals, and that's going to be 2 attacks coming in a row. So overall, Force 2 is definitely the way to go in my opinion for this deck. But that is all you guys. Thank you so much for watching my Super Dimensional Robo Dailiner deck profile. I definitely have a lot more deck profiles I'm working on, but I think after my Blade Master one, I'll be taking a break from deck profiles. I kind of want to do some like talking about Vanguard because I feel like I do a lot of deck profiles, but I don't really talk about Vanguard. I just have so many ideas for this game. But overall, thank you for watching. And please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to my channel. Like I said, I have plenty more content coming out. I'm going to start being a little more diverse with my content, especially about Vanguard. And if your friends thinking about building Dimensional Police, go ahead and share this video with them. Again, all of my decks are a guideline and they're just all my personal taste. I love to see what other ideas can come up to make this deck better, and I'm open to suggestions. But that is all that I have for you today, you guys. So the KP King is out once again.